is on. Oh my. Okay. Perseverance and persistence. All right, so I have read this 3,000 times and thought I kind of had it memorized, but for some reason I feel like I need to read it. So, okay, in the dictionary, perseverance means steady persistence in a course of action, especially in spite of difficulties, obstacles, or discouragement. Persistence means continuing firmly no matter the opposition, continuing to endure over a prolonged period of time. In theology, perseverance is described as a continuance in a state of grace to the end, leading to eternal salvation. As women, wives, mothers, and sisters, we have many areas of our lives that we have to be, where we have to persevere and be persistent. Hebrews 3:14 says, "For if we are faithful to the end, trusting in God just as firmly as when we first believed, we will share in all that belongs to Christ." For women, having perseverance to show love to other women, regardless of how we may feel, how we are talked about or treated, is really hard. Women can be mean, as we all know. I think all of us here has either participated in or been the receiver of hurtful comments, catty gossip, or jealousy. We have to be persistent to ask Jesus to help tame our tongue, clean our thoughts, forgive, not hold grudges, and to see each other the way he sees us, as beautiful daughters of Christ. It is so easy to reach out to one of your sisters, your best friends, or someone that you may feel will agree or side with you and tell them all the things that someone did or said. Some of us feel putting things on social media will help us make us feel better for what we feel is wrong, whether it was done to us or to someone else. Well, stop it. Just stop it. Is that what Jesus would have us do? Would he want us to love outwardly and hate secretly inside? No. For mothers, perseverance and persistence is very difficult, as the challenges we face with growing children. In this world where sin is covered up with lies that say it's okay to do a little bit of this, just a little bit of that, it's not going to hurt anyone, right? Well, no. For example, when our young daughters come to us wanting us to begin wearing one. I don't know why I'm crying at this part, because this is part of me crying. Okay, for example, when our young daughters come to us wanting to begin wearing makeup, or wearing a new fashion that shows a bit too much skin, or when our children ask, beg, or even try to bargain to get a cell phone or access to social media in the outside world, and we feel they're not ready for reasons of age, belief, or just not wanting them to grow up too fast. So many times when we say no, we are faced with ridicule, mockery, and even rejection. The world says our lives will be so much better and we will have so much happiness. Ads on TV and the radio, they talk about, show smiling, laughing people. They've got tons of friends. They appear to have no problems in the world, not a worry around them, because they just bought the newest fashion, the newest makeup, or have the newest phone. As mothers, saying no is so hard. And being persistent when you know that you will not only get attitude, anger, or even hatefulness from your child, but also from other parents who say you're just being a helicopter mom. It's all right. All the kids our age are doing it or has one. This just makes it even harder. So asking Jesus for strength and perseverance to stand your ground is so important and extremely needed. I'm sorry. I gave in to my daughter and the ways of the world. Said that it was all right way too early when she was a young girl. I was not persistent in what I did was wrong, and I did not stand firm on the ways that I was raised. At that time, I felt my happiness would come from being the cool mom or the good parent. Now, 30 years later, I pray every day for my daughter's salvation and protection, because her faith was not built on the solid ground of Jesus, but instead on the ways of the world. As wives, it's sometimes so very hard to persevere through the trials of marriage. For those of you that know my mama, know my sister and I were prayed for as soon as she knew that she was pregnant with us. Some of our friends say, the Rabine girls, they were born Christian. How great that would really be. My mama was persistent in her prayers for us, obviously, or I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I got married to my first husband when I was 6 days of 16, and I gave birth to my daughter 6 months later. Now again, I knew Jesus. However, I allowed myself to be a slave to the world and live my life the way I knew was best. Yeah, right. Thinking back, I persevered through the trials, always knowing there was something more out there that God had in store. And when life became unbearable, I would reach out to my mom for prayer and guidance. I may have prayed out to Jesus, but it was only for what I wanted. At that time, I didn't thank him, and I wasn't persistent in speaking with him or studying his word. I just asked for what I wanted. More than not, I did not take my mama's advice and guidance. And so quickly, the sin of the world would creep back in and fast. However, my mom was still persistent in her prayers for me. Matthew 24:13 says, "Those who endure to the end will be saved." My first husband introduced many things to my life that I willingly went along with. Sexual immorality, alcohol, drugs, and many, many other sins of the world. I'm not blaming him. At that time, I thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. You couldn't tell me differently. I endured a lot of pain for my choices, and I caused a lot of hurt to my family and to my daughter. But again, I was persistent to cry out to Jesus when I knew I was in so deep. But again, mostly for what I wanted. When I reached a point in my life where the sin seemed to be my life, I felt I needed out of my marriage. I cried so hard, and I prayed, and of course, I called my mama. After 13 years of marriage and 2 children, I got the strength to file for divorce and move into my own home. This was pretty huge for me, because remember, I left my family home as young as 16 years old, and I never really lived on my own ever. However, I now lived in Florida with my 2 children as the only family that was near me. But again, I persevered and fought my way with a smile on my face, because that's what we were told to do, smile regardless of what's happening. God encourages persistence in all areas of our life, including spiritually. Without persistence in keeping our faith, we can easily be blown away by the winds of temptation, false teaching, peer pressure, offense, aggravation, the list goes on. Strong character, strength, obedience, and growth develops as you persevere and go through tough conditions, even self-inflicted tough conditions. As long as you have Jesus, you can make it. Fast forward to a little bit later in my life. I was still not fully living in my life in Christ. I prayed more, and I did keep my Bible out in the house. I didn't actually open it, but it was there. So anybody that came over saw I had a Bible.
That counts, Erica.
I met my current husband at the job I had now been in for 2 years. I was a front desk agent at a condo on the beach in Panama City Beach. He came to the desk asking for water because the lobby fountain had broken. We flirted a bit back and forth, and at the end of the day, I found a note on my car, which of course I laminated. It said, "Call at your own risk." Chip Masters. This is 72 years old, just let me let you know. And I called him. This new relationship was the beginning of so many changes for my life. I remembered saying to him after we had been dating for just a few weeks, "Just so you know, I believe in Jesus and I love God. Now, I don't go to church right now, and I don't do anything that shows it, but I will sometime, and I just want to make sure you know this before we start anything." I know. I can't believe I remember saying that. We were sitting on the couch. I remember saying that.
That's good.
And he, of course, said, "Yeah, that's cool. I went to church a few times when I was a kid." There were still several trials and many bad choices, but with perseverance in God, our lives had a different outcome than what we both expected. Jim was not a believer when we met, and he grew up in a very hard and somewhat evil family. But there was something in him. God. God was there. Jim didn't know it, and I'm not sure I did either, but maybe I did. We moved in together with our kids, and after about 2 months, my mama called me and reminded me of a promise I had made her. I remembered this promise, but I ignored it, like Mom would forget. Mama didn't forget. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Probably not you. I had promised her that if Jim and I ever moved into our own place, I would start going to church. So Mama called me on my day off, and she asked me, in Mama's way, "Hey babe, do you have a phone book?" I'm not thinking anything. This is before smartphones, of course. She had me scroll through the yellow pages to look for a church. I kept coming back over and over to this church called Eastgate with the Javalooya. That's right, a church that was also a coffee house. It was the Javalooya. That's right.
Javalooya.
Javalooya.
All up in
So as promised, I began going to church on Sundays with my boys. My daughter would come occasionally, and occasionally my husband would join us. More so just to keep the peace in the house, though. I began asking for forgiveness for my mistakes with raising my daughter. I cried out so many times for her safety. I felt I had failed her, and I knew that there was nothing I could do at this point but pray. We continued on through life, and Jim was persistent in pushing me to move forward in my job, and I was persistent in asking him weekly to come to church. Throughout this time, we endured many trials of raising children on the beach, where the party lifestyle was accepted. Neither one of us really minded it. It was the lifestyle. Tourists were always coming on vacation, and on their vacation, they wanted to party and have fun. We lived around this. We were the locals that could get in through the side door. We didn't need tickets. We could take our friends with us. I persevered through the trials of my past divorce, my current relationship where God was not first, dealing with the mistakes that I had made in the past as well as at the current time, surviving multiple hurricanes, flooding of our home, major oil spill, loss of jobs due to that, issues with climbing the corporate ladder at work for me, temptations for the next best party, raising a very rebellious teenage daughter, having two boys that skipped school to go having two boys that skipped school to go to the beach on a regular basis, and a husband that was in and out of trouble with the law. However, through all of this, I continued going to church, and I was more persistent in praying now, thanking God for all he was doing instead of only asking for what I wanted. A friend had talked me into going to Bible study, and there I met a lady named Mary Lou, Queen of Conch Blowing. She seriously holds that title. Promise you. Conch blowing. You know, conch. She's cool. It's kind of like Mama doing the show. Oh, okay. Yeah. She is the queen of it. She's won multiple awards in Key West and everywhere. It's crazy. Anyway, for the first time, I had admitted to a group of women that I struggled knowing how to pray, especially out loud. Mary Lou gave me this prayer. Of course, I laminated it. Of course. She gave me this prayer, and I put it in my makeup box. That's why it's so discolored and nasty looking. I said this prayer every single morning when I got ready to go to work or anytime I got ready to leave the house. I was very persistent in saying this prayer. Even some mornings when I didn't put my makeup on, I would still go to my bathroom to open up my mailbox and read the prayer before I started my day. Of course, after so many years of reading the prayer, I memorized it, but I still say it to this day, almost every day, and actually made you all a copy of it if that's not if you want it, if you want it. But the prayer is,
she loves
this is what I said.
Because Alan had one.
Good morning, Lord. You're ushering in another day, untouched and freshly new. So here I am to ask you, Lord, if you'll renew me too. Forgive all the many, stop making me cry. Forgive all the many errors that I made yesterday. And let me try again, dear Lord, to walk closer in your way. So, Father, I am well aware I can't make it on my own. So take my hand and hold it tight, for I can't walk alone. So that was my prayer. Wow. That was pretty much the only prayer I said, because that was the only one I really felt like was a good prayer. But anyway, Matthew 7:7-8 says, "Keep on asking and you will be given what you're asking for. Keep on looking and you will find. Keep on knocking and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks finds. And the door is open to everyone who knocks." I grew strong in my faith and my outward actions started changing. Changes I noticed and honestly I liked. I would still go out with my friends after work, but I noticed my want for this lifestyle was quickly changing. I remember getting a window decal from my church. It was a coffee cup, a cute little coffee cup, and it had a cross in the center of it, and it had steam coming up, and the words said, "Eastgate, Coffee and Jesus, Javalooya." I loved it. I put it on my car, and I proudly drove around displaying it. I remember for the first time It was called a Bible thumper because of the decal. And it really this has nothing really to do with this. It was just something I remembered before I tell you guys. But I smiled through that, and I surprised myself by just smiling and looking back at him and saying, yeah. In my mind thinking, what? I can't believe they just called me a Bible thumper. But it was okay. The more my faith grew, the more I wanted my husband to experience what I was experiencing. He was not ready, but I persevered and stayed strong in speaking to Jesus openly in our home. I was persistent in teaching my boys to pray every night over dinner and each night at bedtime. Trials of our mistakes in life continued, but somehow things did not seem as harsh or detrimental as before. Fast forward again. Major problems were happening in my husband's life, and of course that was also affecting me and the boys' life. Several of his choices hit our family very hard, and we reached a point where we needed to get off the beach and start over. This was something I could not fathom, as I had really only known the beach life. To say I was stressed out was an understatement. I loved my job. My career was going so strong. I had received Employee of the Year in a company of around 2,000 people. I was paid a salary that still shocks me to this day. My benefits were the best anyone could imagine. I had an awesome church, amazing friends, and I was very well respected in the community. But we needed to leave Florida and start over, not knowing anything. My husband lost his mom, and he was distant from the rest of his family. My family was in Augusta, and my daddy was getting sick due to Agent Orange he had gotten in Vietnam. My sister called me one day, and she said, "Sis, it's time you move back. You've been gone way too long, and I need you here." That pricked my heart so hard. Jim and I had thrown around the possibility of moving to Georgia after our boys had graduated, and that time had now come. Without a word to my husband, I left for work as normal, and when en route, I was talking to Jesus, and I knew this was the day that I was going to turn in my notice. It just so happened that we had all of a sudden mandatory managers meeting unexpectedly called in Destin, where our call center was. When arriving, the company president happened to be sitting in his office, where he was usually not seen until the time he came in to speak. I was the last in the group that was walking in. Lino happened to turn around right in front of me as I was passing, and he said, "Hello, Erica." Why he'd even know me, it was crazy, but he did. All I could say was, "Hi, Lino. I need to talk to you when we get a chance." About 15 minutes into our manager's meeting, Lino walked into the room, came directly to me and asked me if I would please leave the room with him and go speak to him. I gave him my notice at that time. Took a while to convince him that I really had to leave, which is kind of cool, but he gave me 45 days to train someone for my position. Wow. That was so unheard of, especially in a large corporation. Usually they say 2 weeks or go ahead and go now. But this was the exact amount of time that I needed to make all the preparations to move to Georgia. Wow. The 45 days before moving were a whirlwind of get-togethers, going away parties, packing, tears, and all the while a small excitement was inside me. I continued to pray about the changes in the decision we were making, and I actually had a peace that really made no sense. My friends were shocked because they all knew me as the beach, sun, and sand girl. They knew my work ethic, and they knew for me to go somewhere that I had no idea what I was going to do was just crazy. One of my best friends had said to me, "Erica, what are you going to do? Where are you going to work? Where are you going to live?" She was talking about in the flesh, all of that, but all I could say to her is, "Well, I don't know about all that, but I know I'm going to be closer to God and grow in my faith." That's still fun when I say that to her. So here I am now, living near my family, involved in a new church. I have a new set of friends, a new job, and a husband that loves Jesus. Amen. We still have many, many trials, but I wake each day and do the best to thank the Lord Jesus for all he has done in my life first, before I bring my needs. I still pray persistently for my daughter's protection, salvation, and to keep her alive. And I know one day that she will be sharing her testimony.
That's right.
Amen. Amen.
I'm still a work in progress, but with the perseverance and persistence in my life, I know whatever God has in store for me and my family will be more than I could ever imagine or hope for. I got one more song then, just to end it, which you guys probably know this song.
Before I bring my need, I will bring my heart. Before I lift my cares, I will lift my arms. I wanna know you, I wanna find you in every season, in every moment. Before I bring my need, I will bring my heart and seek you. I wanna seek you, I wanna seek you. I wanna keep you, I wanna keep you. More than anything I want you. Before I speak a word, let me hear your voice. And in the midst of pain, let me feel your joy. Ooh, I wanna know you, I wanna find you in every season, in every moment. Before I speak a word, I will bring my heart and seek you. I wanna seek you, I wanna seek you. I wanna keep you. More than anything I You are my treasure and my reward. Let nothing ever come before. You are my treasure and my reward. Let nothing ever come before. I seek you.
I need to meet my sister one time.
Remember Grandpa?
That's my granddad used to say.
That's right.
Come on, we'll finish studying.
I've come up with a new vacation.
They made me a whole bunch back there.
Yes?
Eat more, girl. That's all back there. Eat all them donuts.
They made me so much.
So that we can go back to Panama City and visit your friends. The only way that we can afford that is if I'm going to charge you $1 every time you say I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes. $100. Thank you so much. You know what she got it?
Basically, I'm paying for a trip.
So Jan and Miss, you're going to, and Leo are going to hold your account about work.
Yep, we'll put a jar. We'll put a jar.
Yeah, and we're going to hold your account about church. Now, we realize you'll be homeless and hungry.
But we'll have a really nice vacation, so it is, yeah. That's true.
She doesn't know what a
We're going to
vacation
see your
is.
friends in Panama City.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I've never been to Panama City, so I'm ready to go.
Prettiest beach.
First of all, let's thank Eric.